James Brown, the godfather of soul, was known for his electrifying stage presence and undeniable musical genius. But beneath the smooth grooves and funky rhythms, there was tension and rivalry. Brown was not afraid to speak his mind, especially when it came to the singers he despised. Whether it was due to musical disagreements, personality clashes, or plain jealousy, these 6 singers made it onto James Brown's blacklist. Prepare for a deep dive into the drama, ego battles, and conflicts that made these musical titans enemies. Let's take a look at the voices he could never stand. Before we dive into video, please subscribe our channel. James Brown wasn't just a legend, he was a force in the music industry. With his pioneering style and undeniable influence, his impact on soul, funk, and R&B can still be felt today. However, James Brown's path to greatness wasn't smooth, especially when it came to his relationships with other stars. Known for his fiery temperament and high standards, Brown found himself at odds with several prominent figures in the music scene. His riffs weren't just public spats or casual disagreements. They were deep, intense, and at times, very personal. As a self-made icon who demanded respect from his peers, Brown had little patience for what he saw as rivals or disrespect from others. Behind the scenes, his interactions with some of the top singers of his time were filled with bitter rivalries, with each incident marking a significant point of tension in his career. These confrontations didn't just stay within the music world. They fueled the media frenzy, leaving fans to speculate about what really went on between these legendary musicians. Despite their shared passion for music, their professional and personal lives collided in ways that left lasting scars on both sides. In this list, we're going to explore the stories behind James Brown's disdain for these 6 singers. Their conflicts have become part of music history, revealing just how complicated the road to fame can be, even for the greatest. Now we talk about 6 singers he disliked the most and why. Number 1. Sly Stone. James Brown's feud with Sly Stone was one of the most talked about rivalries in the music world. The animosity between the two began in the late 1960s, when Sly Stone, the frontman of Sly and the Family Stone, began to rise in prominence with his unique fusion of funk, soul, and rock. Brown, who had been the pioneer of funk, viewed Stone's innovative sound as a direct threat to his dominance in the genre. The root of their hatred can be traced to Brown's belief that Stone was stealing from his musical innovations. Stone's music, which featured a mixture of rock and funk with a more experimental approach, seemed to challenge Brown's strict formula for soul and funk. Brown, whose influence on the genre was immense, couldn't tolerate the fact that Stone was challenging the very essence of what Brown had spent years perfecting. To make matters worse, Stone's success, especially with hits like Dance to the Music and Thank You for Letting Me Be Mice Elf Agen, started overshadowing Brown's earlier works. In interviews, Brown expressed his displeasure with Stone's approach to music, accusing him of imitating his style without giving credit where it was due. The competition between the two artists intensified, leading to a deeply bitter relationship. Despite their respective greatness, the feud between Sly Stone and James Brown was fueled by jealousy and a battle for dominance in the evolving funk scene. Their rivalry remains a testament to the competitive nature of the music industry, where even legends can clash. Number 2. Marvin Gay. James Brown's relationship with Marvin Gay was marred by a combination of personal and professional tensions, which eventually led to a deep-seated rivalry between the two. At the height of Gay's success in the late 1960s and early 1970s, he began to establish his own identity within the music industry, and this did not sit well with Brown, who had been a leading figure in soul and funk for years. The primary source of their conflict stemmed from the fact that Marvin Gay was often seen as a smoother, more romantic figure compared to Brown's intense, raw energy on stage. Gay's shift towards more socially conscious and introspective music, especially with his iconic album What's Going On, was a departure from the hard-edged funk that Brown was known for. While Gay was focusing on his socially aware lyrics, Brown's focus remained on energetic, dance-driven music. Brown reportedly felt threatened by Gay's success and innovation, particularly as Gay's songs began to dominate the charts. Brown, who had built his career on being the dominant force in soul and funk, perceived Gay's success as a challenge to his authority in the genre. This tension was further exacerbated by Gay's increasing desire for creative control, which led to friction with his label and fellow artists like Brown. At one point, Brown allegedly criticized Gay for abandoning the soul roots that made him famous and accused him of being too soft and commercial. Marvin Gay, in turn, saw Brown's criticism as unwarranted and a sign of jealousy, contributing to the animosity between the two. Despite their professional success, their relationship remained strained, with both artists continuing to follow their own musical paths, but never quite reconciling their differences. Number 3. Sammy Davis Jr. The animosity between James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr. was deeply rooted in personal and professional disagreements, with the two stars constantly at odds in the public eye. Davis, a multi-talented entertainer who had already achieved fame as a singer, dancer, and actor, found himself in direct conflict with Brown due to differing ideologies and approaches to entertainment. One of the key reasons for their tension was their different outlooks on race and the entertainment industry. Davis, a member of the famed Rat Pack and a fixture in Hollywood, often took a more mainstream, commercial approach to his career. He performed in high-profile venues and had close relationships with industry moguls, which made him somewhat of a symbol of black success within the largely white-dominated entertainment industry. In contrast, James Brown was fiercely independent, known for his strong stance on black empowerment and his commitment to representing African Americans through his music and image. Their clash intensified when Brown, who was passionate about civil rights and black pride, publicly criticized Davis for not taking a stronger stand on racial issues. Brown believed that Davis's collaborations with white entertainers and his involvement in Hollywood, where racial barriers were still prevalent, made him less of a representative figure for black Americans. Brown, who was outspoken about racial inequality and dedicated to ensuring black artists maintained their autonomy, felt that Davis compromised his integrity by aligning with the Hollywood establishment. Sammy Davis Jr., on the other hand, saw Brown's criticism as an attack on his career and artistic choices. The tension between the two men, both of whom were fiercely competitive and passionate about their crafts, became emblematic of the larger struggles that black entertainers faced during that era. While their rivalry never reached the level of physical altercations, their mutual disdain for each other's ideologies kept them at odds throughout their careers. Number 4. Ray Charles. James Brown's feud with Ray Charles was one of the most notable rivalries in the history of soul and R&B music. The two legends, both towering figures in the genre, had several clashes over musical styles, personal issues, and their positions within the music industry. The root of their conflict began in the 1960s, when Ray Charles, already a household name for his pioneering contributions to soul and jazz, began to experiment with different styles, including country and pop. This departure from the hard-hitting, funky sound that Brown was known for didn't sit well with the godfather of soul. Brown, always protective of his position as a leading figure in soul music, viewed Charles' musical experimentation as a form of betrayal to the genre that both of them had helped shape. Brown believed that Charles was diluting soul music by seeking mainstream commercial success, something Brown was determined not to do. The rivalry deepened when Charles, who was known for his sharp wit and unapologetic demeanor, made public comments that were seen as disrespectful towards Brown. He mocked Brown's intense and somewhat dictatorial approach to his band and his performances. Brown, who was meticulous about every detail in his performances and demanded the same from his band, took offense to the criticism. In turn, Brown retaliated by taking potshots at Charles in interviews, accusing him of not having the same dedication to soul music and its roots. The tension between the two musicians was further fueled by their contrasting personalities, Ray Charles being more laid-back and diplomatic, while James Brown was known for his fiery temperament and high standards. Despite their differences, both men continued to influence generations of musicians, but their relationship remained strained, and they were never able to fully reconcile their artistic and personal differences. Rence's number 5. Bobby Womack. James Brown's rivalry with Bobby Womack was marked by a mix of personal betrayal, professional jealousy, and deep mistrust. The tension between the two began when Womack, who was initially a member of Brown's legendary backing band, the Famous Flames, started to forge his own path in the music industry. Womack, a gifted musician and songwriter, had worked with Brown during the early part of his career and had even been a part of some of Brown's most iconic tracks. However, tensions began to rise when Womack started to gain recognition as a solo artist. Brown, known for his controlling nature and tight grip over his band members, was not pleased to see one of his key collaborators move towards independence. He felt that Womack was trying to steal his shine and break away from the very group that had helped him reach his own legendary status. Their relationship soured further when Womack began collaborating with other big names in the music industry, including Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, and Wilson Pickett. Brown, who had built a reputation for being fiercely protective of his collaborators and his musical territory, saw these outside collaborations as a threat to his dominance in the soul and R&B world. The final straw came when Womack was publicly critical of Brown's harsh treatment of his band members, especially the famous Flames. In interviews, Womack spoke openly about the difficult working conditions under Brown's leadership, calling him a perfectionist who drove his band to exhaustion. Brown, who prided himself on his impeccable work ethic and the loyalty of his musicians, took Womack's comments as a personal attack and labeled him as disloyal. The fallout from this conflict lasted for years, with both artists refusing to speak kindly of one another in interviews. Despite this, Womack went on to have a successful career, and although the two never reconciled, their feud became part of the larger narrative of power struggles and rivalries in the soul music industry. Number 6. Richard Pryor. James Brown's relationship with comedian Richard Pryor was one of both deep respect and intense rivalry. While the two were initially friendly, their professional relationship became strained due to differing personal and professional values, leading to one of the more complicated feuds in music and entertainment history. The tension between Brown and Pryor began to surface when Pryor, known for his irreverent and bold comedic style, began to make jokes about Brown's intense and sometimes erratic behavior. As a comedian, Pryor found humor in the larger-than-life personalities of his celebrity peers, and Brown, with his commanding presence and fiery temper, was an easy target. Pryor would often poke fun at Brown's onstage antics and his tendency to control every aspect of his shows. While some of the jokes were lighthearted, they hit a nerve with Brown, who, like many other artists, was sensitive to public criticism. Brown, a perfectionist who demanded nothing but the best from his band and himself, didn't take kindly to being the subject of mockery, especially when it came from a figure as prominent as Pryor. Their professional rivalry grew when Brown felt that Pryor, who had achieved his own fame and success as a stand-up comic and actor, was undermining his serious efforts to be taken seriously as an artist. Pryor, on the other hand, thought Brown was too wrapped up in his own ego and not enough in the truth, which was often at the heart of his comedy. Although both men went on to achieve legendary status in their respective fields, their public feud continued to cast a shadow over their relationship. Despite a shared respect for each other's talents, the bitterness between them remained, making their rivalry a complex and enduring part of their legacies.